Have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
Right, I'm Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth. So if you need a truth injection, here it is. God, I'm starting to sound like a 70s DJ. There was a great disc jockey in the St. Louis area. His name was, I can't remember what his real name was, but he went by Dr. Jockenstein. He had kind of this gruff voice. Dr. Jockenstein, operating on your mind till 9. Gosh, he was something. He died early. I know that, 55 years old, and he was usually on black stations in the St. Louis area, especially East St. Louis, Illinois, is an African-American area, I guess by choice. But anyway, he played on, and he had the greatest things going on this black radio station that played pretty much bubblegum black music for the time. And otherwise, it appealed to young girls, young black girls. And Jockenstein knew how to work it, I'll tell you. He was just he was just all over of course, he was a contrived personality, you know. Who says things like that? Dr. Jockenstein operating on your mind till 9. Well, only somebody who was on the radio in the 70s would have said something like that. But he was some kind of character. He'd go out for personal appearances and play music in neighborhoods all over St. Louis. He'd have recorded music probably around the time they were starting. Oh, what is that? Masking type thing where you where an MC moves the needle back and forth on a record to get a certain sound out of it. I think Jock was probably one of the first who ever did that. But he was a big hit all over St. Louis. Crowds of people would come to see him at these outdoor shows and boogie in the street in the summertime. As I say, he died too soon. And what happens to all disc jockeys like that is their style runs out of steam. Times changed over the years, and nobody wanted to hear from Dr. Jockenstein anymore. So his career went down the tubes quite a bit, but he had made some solid money in his heyday, and he continued to be a personality in the St. Louis area. If you're from the St. Louis area and you lived there in the 70s, you know exactly who I'm talking about, whether you're white, black, or whatever you were, because he was one of the big personalities in St. Louis. Go to YouTube sometime. There are YouTube clips of Jockenstein doing his thing. It was really cool. There are a lot of talented people in radio that at that time in the 70s, and especially the 80s. The idea then was to keep the music playing and find 15 seconds in the intro. The intro, of course, is like an instrumental leading up to the first vocal. And if you could be funny in 10 or 15 seconds or get a couple of voices in there and keep the music rolling, you made a lot of money. Rick, what the heck was his name? Guy that did Disco Duck. Disco Duck. Remember that awful song? Well, that was a DJ at the time in Memphis. And I'm going to look it up for you here. I should have done this before I got on the air. But he performed that song. Rick Dees, that was what his name was. Rick Dees and his cast of idiots did Disco Duck. Remember that silly song? Well, again, that was put together by a DJ in Memphis at the time. And on the basis of this huge hit and his big audience in Memphis, he got a job out in Los Angeles. And he was very big out there for a long, long time. Of course, he's my age, so his stick got old too. And I, because of Alexa and online services, I tune into because I'm a radio guy. I essentially do the same thing I did when I was a little kid. My dad got a transistor radio when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Oh, transistor radio. That was so cool. And I'd take that transistor radio into bed with me at night. I wasn't supposed to, but I always snuck it in there. And I'd pull the covers up over my head and I'd find far off radio stations and listen to them. And that just seemed to be a fantastic, wonderful, very different world that these people inhabited. The on-air people and all their guests and the musicians and artists. I was just enthralled. And the one I could pull in most at that time was WLS in Chicago. It was a music station. Music Station 890 WLS with Larry Lujak and a guy by the name. The guy I got to listen to most was a guy by the name of Art Roberts. He was on in the night time. Years later, down in Dallas, I got to meet Art Roberts. And he was and I'm happy to report, he was a real good guy. You know, sometimes you're disappointed. Like a lot of listeners are when they see me. I've told you this story before. There's been a couple of girls, 3 girls, who are excited about seeing me live. And when they do, they go, oh, you don't look as good as you sound, and walk away. You know, well, I'm undeterred. I yell at them, well, neither do you. I think I was in North Carolina the first time somebody said that to me. Not only did they say that, and I think I foolishly asked, well, what were you expecting? And she said, well, someone considerably slimmer. Jeez. Yes. Well, how big is your butt anyway, lady? I didn't realize it was your butt. I thought it was a herd of young children that followed you into the building here. But it turns out to be your derriere. Yeah, remember derriere. The only reason I know that word is because that's how people had to say your butt in television all those years. Even Saturday Night Live, well, your derriere. Or Hawkeye on MASH would say, your derriere. The back of your front. You know, I enjoyed MASH back in the day, but not so much now. I'm going to talk with Janice Valentine right after the news at the bottom of the hour. Janice Valentine, local attorney. And I'll ask her about her impression of the fascist nature of liberalism today. Janice is a little bit on the liberal side. She's a Republican. Well, and there's a lot of people like this. She's a Republican when it comes to fiscal issues, economic issues. She's very much a Republican in that regard. But when it comes to social issues, gay marriage, certainly abortion, women's rights, a lot of those things, she's definitely left to center. And, you know, she's a great person, and I really have been grateful to her for being on the program for, well, several years now. But I want to talk to Janice to get her impression of Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey is the founder of Twitter, and he's still the CEO. He has banned Donald Trump from being on his platform forever. Now, he's troubled by that decision, and I'm troubled by it as well, but not for the same reasons Jack is. Dorsey essentially said in a Twitter post today, a day or two after banning Donald Trump, that this sets a dangerous precedent. Banning a political figure sets a dangerous precedent. Trump has been, by the way, banned from a lot of other sites that Twitter controls. Same thing with Facebook. They don't like the way what he says, so they're going to ban him. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Trump has incited violence. Yes, but he spent quite a long time on Twitter doing this, running for president of the United States. He ran for president of the United States, and he used Twitter extensively while he was president. And what he did was bypass the media, and the media is furious. I mean, Jim Acosta and some of those people went crazy. Acosta from CNN. They were desperate for relevance. I mean, you can kind of see it in Acosta. When the president, well, Trump was still president, and he'd hold a news conference, you could see those people, and they always jockeyed for position. They did back in Reagan's day and probably since the beginning of the Republic. But they really went crazy with Trump. First of all, the print media especially tilts to the left. And second, they really wanted to get Trump on the record saying something because he could control the narrative. I hope I'm making myself clear. They wanted to get Trump on the record very precisely and exactly because Trump could always get on Twitter and spin it his own way. Now, spinning, unfortunately, is part of our lives. And I think it's up to we, the people, to force political figures of all stripe to tell the damn truth. You think Nancy Pelosi gets up there every day and says what's good for the country? She most certainly doesn't. She says things and does things that are good for the Democratic Party, not the country, the Democratic Party. By the way, we have the strangest bunch of leaders I've seen since Lyndon Johnson was president. Nancy Pelosi with those big bugged out diet pill eyes. I mean, that is some serious White Cross to stay that thin. Chuck Schumer, Chuck, get the glasses off the end of your nose, please. I don't even want to get into Donald Trump. His appearance is really bizarre. And I mean, he'd do a tanning bed and appear at a news conference right away. And he'd have those raccoon eyes. His face would be orange tinted, of course. You could see where the glasses had been. The sun, what kind of glasses? You know what I'm talking about. So that the ultraviolet rays don't harm his eyes. I mean, most people who use tanning beds do that. I've never used a tanning bed personally. I'm kind of past the time when I worry about having a tan. I usually get a tan because my buddy's got a boat up at Okoboji, and I go up there and get sunburned as hell a couple of times every summer. And it's a lot of fun. He's got a big, powerful boat, and he's a great host. And I think I was up there 4th of July. Man, that place still fills up on 4th of July. But anyway, yeah, we have our fair share of strange-looking political figures. Lyndon Johnson, I think I touched on this yesterday. Lyndon Johnson just hated television. He'd rail at the reporters, television reporters, saying, "You ruined it. You ruined this thing. You let people see us and how we looked and our idiosyncrasies and this, that, and the other thing." Of course, Lyndon Johnson, and he's here. Lyndon Johnson, I think, is the most accomplished and the best president we ever had. John Kennedy was smoother, and so was Ronald Reagan. But when it came to actually getting substantial programs done, Medicare, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, you name it, no other president has accomplished, but maybe with the exception of Roosevelt, but no other president has accomplished what Lyndon Johnson did. So I will forgive his saggy jowls and his droopy eyes and his great big ears. But he was a cartoonist's dream. Him and Nixon both. Because poor Lyndon had those big droopy ears and the jowls, and there was Nixon with that ski nose of his, you know. The cartoonists, especially Herblock with the Washington Post. You may not know it, but you've seen plenty of Herblock cartoons over the years. He's dead now. Herbert Block was his name, and he was a great cartoonist, liberal cartoonist for the Washington Post. And he just murdered Nixon and Johnson both. By the way, my number is 515-955-1400, 515-955-1400. We had Mayor Matt Bemrick in yesterday, and Matt and I like to consider Matt a friend, and I'm sure he considers me a friend. But we don't see each other very often. As a matter of fact, the only time we've seen each other for the last several years is in this studio. I used to see him over at Old Boston or Amigos or someplace or over at Lefty's. You know, we'd sit and talk. His wife, Michelle, is a terrific person. But I guess I got out of the habit of going downtown, you know, to some of those places, and I never. I was invited over to Matt's house once. They had ordered, his parents were there, and the St. Edmund boys were all there. Football team were all there for some reason. It was some special deal, and the Bemricks were supposed to feed these kids, and they had food left over. So Matt called me. I only live about 3 blocks from him, and said, "Come on over and help us eat this spaghetti." Well, I was in my car in 2 seconds flat, and over I went. They have a very nice house over there, and they're great hosts. And his parents are very, very nice people. Of course, a lot of people know them, Greg and Sue, and we're lucky to have the Bemricks in our town, and we've certainly benefited from the leadership of Matt Bemrick. He's one of the coolest heads I know, I'll tell you. He keeps his cool. I never had the gift. Never had the gift, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to say, but that's just the way it is. 515-955-1400 if you'd like to join the conversation for any reason at all. I bring up the mayor simply because we sat in here and talked for 40 minutes of airtime and said practically nothing. It was like we were sitting around somewhere just having a personal chat between the two of us, which was great, but we were on the air. When we're on the air, we do like to discuss city issues and invite people to call in and ask the mayor a question. We started with Terry Lutz. The first year and a half I was here, Terry Lutz was the mayor. You remember Lutz, right? He was a character. He was a real character. And he'd come in every Tuesday. I don't know how Matt started coming in on Thursday. It doesn't really make any difference. But he's done a great job over the years. He's been making himself available to the public in a number of forums, including this one. He looks forward to the phone ringing. He'll take on any question. Not like some of the other councilmen, I might add, who won't come over here because, I don't know. You'll have to ask them. You'll have to ask a couple of those council people over there, Allstott and Fritz, why they won't come. I know why Andy won't come. I was very disappointed in Andy. But you'll have to ask, go to a council meeting sometime and ask Councilman Fritz and Councilman Allstott why they won't make themselves more available. Or if they do make themselves available to the local media. And of course, we're just a little town. You got radio and you got the messenger. And believe me, radio is more immediate and more thorough in a lot of ways, in my opinion. But you might want to ask some of your local representatives why they won't appear on this program. They could be, of course, I can be kind of a wise guy. I understand. And I can probably make somebody look bad if I really tried, but I never tried to do that with Andy. I don't think I lost my temper with Kim a couple of times, and it's so unprofessional that I had to apologize to him sincerely. And Dave, of course, Dave Flattery is over at the bank. He says he has to make a living. He used to come in here. Dave Flattery, when I was on in the morning, he used to come in here at 7, which worked out fine for him. He was on for 20 minutes till 7:30 or whatever, and then he'd head off to work. And Lydia has young children at home, of course, and I don't think she likes to be on the radio in general. It might have something to do with me, but I don't think Lydia likes being on the radio. And that happens with a lot of people, by the way. There's some people like Matt Bemrick and me and others who jump right on the microphone. Not a problem. We don't blink, nothing. Other people are intimidated. I've seen it in here with some very, very intelligent people, well-educated people. I open up the microphone and they freeze. They can go on and on and on about their field that they specialize in. But if I put a microphone in front of their face, it changes the whole dynamic. I've seen people in the studio here, men wearing suits, and I tell them, well, 30 seconds to airtime, and they start straightening their tie. You don't really need to straighten your tie when you're on the radio. But anyway, ask those councilmen. You have a right to know. I'm imperfect as a host. I get it. But you still should and will have a right to know.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 2:30. The news is next.
Attention soybean farmers. This is an important alert. Those whose soybean crops were damaged by dicamba may be eligible to participate in a $400 million settlement with Monsanto. This dicamba settlement provides compensation for soybean farmers who have suffered crop damage since 2015. You have the opportunity to participate in this settlement and be compensated for 100% of your yield losses if the damage